regardless of whether it was our fault, your fault, my mom's fault, the Smurfs, whoever's fault it was, you are lying to people when you tell them that doctors are cutting off the genitalia of 1-year-olds in high school. 1-year-olds don't go to high school. Lunch ladies don't do surgeries. That's a lie. So I don't care if it's the Smurf fault or if it's Janet Jackson's fault or whose fault what made you say that. It is a lie and it's not real. But now the governors and the lawmakers in every single state are using your quote, which was a lie, to pass these laws that are harming people. Hey y'all, welcome back to Queer 101, the podcast where we talk about any and everything under the sun, including queer art, queer culture, queer literature, and whatever the hell we want, even queer news. I'm Peppermint.
And I'm Hugh Ryan, aka Hugh the Historian.
That's right. And today, honey, we're just gonna go off the cuff. We had something else planned for you, but we were going through the news as one does. You just go through you wake up and you look at your phone and the headlines hit you in the face.
As I said, I wouldn't doom scroll, but all this doom is already in my scroll. It's not my fault. There's no avoiding it.
It basically gets delivered to your door.
Yeah. Somebody called my iPhone the flashlight that yells bad news at me. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. That is the experience of having a fucking phone these days. But, we were talking a couple weeks ago about passports and about what Trump administration is doing right now to trans people and passports. And right before we hopped on, you were saying something about a new interview that Caitlyn Jenner just gave. Can you tell our readers about this?
Yeah, I mean, Caitlyn Jenner, first of all, I don't know exactly why Caitlyn Jenner, let me back up. Caitlyn Jenner's in the news. Heavens to Betsy, I don't know why. She's in the news.
She hit somebody else with
giving
a car?
interviews. Hello. I mean, yeah, there's nothing relevant that I can think of, but she keeps herself every few months. She'll recirculate with nothing to say. And what was really revealing this time around was she basically came on to Tomi Lahren's show on Fox. I think it was on Fox.
This is already like a nightmare blunt rotation.
Yeah. To basically complain about the issues, to show an awareness of the impact of the Trump policies and the current sort of right-wing shift that is very anti-trans, this anti-trans and LGBTQ attitude, right-wing attitude, conservative attitude on the community, and talking about the impact of those things, and disclosing that she has experienced some of that impact, but all in all, it's all right. I wish that we could play a clip.
Oh. I know. I really want to hear it.
Passport. I had to get it renewed. I sent it back. Comes back gender marker M. Screws everything up. So there's a form in there. If they made a mistake, you can correct it. So I fill out all the proper forms. I'm not calling anybody. I'm not calling the president. I got his personal cell number. I'm not calling anybody. I'm going to see if I can fix this myself, because it's not just about me. It's about all people in this situation, So I even sent a hard copy of my birth certificate, Caitlyn Marie Jenner, gender, sex, female. I did everything. And they sent it back M. They didn't change it at all. So now I'm in a position, Tommy, that what do I do?
Right.
This is a safety factor, okay? I can't travel internationally anymore, okay? I can't use my passport. I can use global entry. It says F. I can do this. I can travel in the United States, license, driver's license, pilot's license, everything, gender marker F. So it really creates a big problem. And I'm trying to figure out at this point what to do. I don't blame President Trump. I love him. But for a lot of people, this is a huge issue,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I have not talked to the president. I was in Mar-a-Lago 2 months ago, wrote a letter. explaining all of this to him, how it's affecting me and a lot of other people. And unfortunately, he wasn't there that weekend. Actually, the Secret Service guy said he could get it to him, put it on his desk and stuff. I haven't heard from him. He's kind of busy right now.
Listen, I try my best to really just refrain from attacking individuals or like really mentioning individuals and picking on them separately, because, you know, people like that are really only able to do what they do as a part of a larger system, a part of a larger sort of project. And she's insignificant. She's insignificant, meaning if she weren't here, they would have found somebody else to do it. So like, I know that that's true, but you know, I do find it's obviously hypocritical. And there's been a huge like wave of hypocrisy lately from Caitlyn Jenner, who her job in the sort of grand scheme of things is to be a less attackable trans voice that is supportive of the Trump policies, specifically the trans sports bans, any of those, but on a wider scale, anything that's, you know, anything that attacks trans women, it's her job to support those things with, and if we were on a battlefield and we were, you know, throwing Nerf balls, because I'm try to be nonviolent, she would have protection from some of those Nerf balls being thrown.
Yeah, there's certain
because
attacks you
she's
can't
trans.
come at her with. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the same thing with Dave Chappelle, who I don't even like speaking his name in life, let alone in public or on camera. But it was really interesting that switching from Caitlyn Jenner to switching to Dave Chappelle to giving an interview on NPR from a local NPR station that he just purchased, which must be why they decided to talk to him, because why are we talking to Dave Chappelle right now? And he was there, and I only saw a snippet of the interview, but the interview, the clip was a moment of him basically talking about how he thinks the right-wing rhetoric and conversation, in this case, in particular in relation to trans people, has gone too far right.
I did resent that the Republican Party ran on transgender jokes. You know, I felt like they were doing a weaponized version of what I was doing. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
This was before I learned the phrase "I respectfully decline," and I was on Capitol Hill, and everybody ran up to take pictures with me from every congressional office, and I just take pictures with whoever asked. I didn't ask how they vote or what their voting record is. And then here comes Lauren Boebert, and she said, "Can I get a picture?" And I'd already taken 40 pictures. I didn't want to say no in front of everybody, but I didn't know the phrase "I respectfully decline." So I just took the picture, and then she post a picture before I could even get from there to the show, and says something to the effect of just two people that knew that it's just two genders. She instantly like weaponized or politicized. So I got to the arena and I lit her ass up for doing that. And she should never do that, a person like me.
Some people think the president's funny. And I've had people say this to me, like I've interviewed people to say, well, what do you like about him? They say, he's funny. Do you think he's funny?
Maybe if he wasn't president, I think that was funny. Or maybe at times, there are funny things about him. Like if I were to talk about him, I could, it would be funny. But I think what he does is so consequential. And so much of these things, you know, in my lifetime, I've never really seen anything, a phenomenon quite like him. I'm not trying to be political, but it's remarkable. I don't know. I don't know how funny it is.
And so it's wild that both of them are saying now it's gone too far right and it's too much.
It's hilarious. I saw that too, and he said something about that. You know, they had weaponized his jokes, and I was like, what did they do that was any different? Your jokes was already a weapon. You know, like it's. I wonder, and I'm curious what you think. Like, do you think this is trying to protect themselves because they think that the right is falling apart a little bit? Do you think this is genuine regret, or do you think this is just another way of saying like, oh no, that's not what we meant, but we're going to continue on exactly as usual? Like, are we seeing a change in some way, or is this just more of the same?
I mean, all of the above. Like, I do think that there are, I mean, listen, we're not just hallucinating with saying that we are in wild times and that things that would have seemed acceptable, things that would have seemed unacceptable 5, 10 years ago are just everyday occurrences today with regards to political violence, political discourse, political theater, all of the stuff as it relates to politics, and then sort of like going into legislation and policy and just all those different things, even beyond politics. And a lot of that, I remember people were saying that the rhetoric of candidate Donald Trump before becoming president the first time was so uncouth and so lacking in decorum that it was going to push the political conversation. And that has definitely happened because
Yeah.
there are people who are like, what? So what? I'm a Nazi. And
Mhm.
that's that. And
there was
that's
a
it.
moment
And
8 years ago where people thought, oh, grab him by the pussy might dislodge his entire campaign. And now he says something like that every single day, and so does everyone else.
yeah, it's just par for the course. And so so we're not like out of our minds to take note and recognize and acknowledge that things have gone so extreme and so wild. And even people who are supporters of this administration have said very selectively that political discourse has gotten crazy. Of course, they only acknowledge like left-wing political discourse. They don't acknowledge anything having to do with right-wing political discourse. Like he said, he could literally shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and they would still support him with absolutely no criticism or of anything. There's no critical thinking. There's no analysis to be done. It's just, I mean, the most we would probably get is, oh, it's some left-wing person's fault if Trump shot somebody on the Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
As we saw with the, the horrible murders by ICE of
Alex Preddy and Rachel Good.
Alex Preddy and Rachel Good.
Yeah.
And I do think that these folks are, yes, jumping. I think it's all the above. There's definitely people who have valid criticisms of this administration and or their policies. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I don't have any alignment with at all, but like, I do, some of what she's saying is true.
It's true.
In terms of criticizing
I feel the same way
him.
about the Catholic Church, watching the Pope recently. It's like, I disagree
Yeah.
with the Pope on so many things and the church on
100%.
so many things.
And I will remain on the other side of that. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're pushing
what
like
they're saying is
about immigrants, about poverty, about war, about death. I mean, those are sort of things where like I, left the church a long time ago, but I was raised very deeply in the Catholic Church, going multiple times a week. I was confirmed. I did all the steps. And that is the core. And like when JD Vance tries to call out the Pope and be like, I don't know if you know theology, it makes me think like maybe this will push the Catholic Church slightly in a direction towards opposing more of what Trump is doing, not around gender and sexuality, but around war and poverty and immigration. I have hope there, a slight hope, but I don't know. I really don't know whether this is going to be just the Pope making a couple of statements and then nothing happens or what. But it's interesting to see this happening now.
It is interesting to see it, but it was predictable. I knew that it would be because it's people who are of low moral character. I'm not talking about the Pope specifically, but I'm just saying people who are of low moral character have no problem supporting an administration like this, and then would no surprise that they would jump ship when it feels like it's not politically expedient or beneficial to them personally anymore. And so we know that people who have supported administrations like this in the past, and then when I say in the past, I mean in the past 10 years, who have supported administrations like this are very quick to say, you know what, I don't really care about homeless people because I don't want to see them on my porch. I don't really care about LGBT people because I don't want them to. Everything is just about what it is for them. And when we ask them, well, would you care to help people? Would you care to do something that's more empathetic? They're actually saying, oh, empathy is the problem with our country. Like, people in his administration are saying that. And so, it's no surprise that these people would backstab him if they have the opportunity, especially given the fact that of the few successful times that that court cases have been won against either Trump or his administration or his actions. The people who have gone to jail, people who paid the price, people who have actually gone down have been people around him, the people that have been his supporters. And so the people that are around him, I think at least know, whoa, you can stay around and get what you're going to get. And hopefully you'll get some money, but you better get out before the chips fall because you will go to jail. Like somebody's going to be held accountable for all this stuff.
Yeah, some people will
somebody
be
will
hurt
be held
by
accountable.
this.
And so, watching all these people jump ship, I'm not surprised. But I also have very little, I'm like, you know what? I don't know what to say because I didn't even want to necessarily discuss or talk about Caitlyn Jenner and Dave Chappelle at all. I don't want to put any energy out there. And to be honest with you, the fact that Dave Chappelle would buy an NPR station and have himself interviewed to talk about how he thinks that things are out of control now is just so wild to me. And
it's so in line with all of these billionaires buying newspapers to control their coverage, like making the Washington Post turn their opinion section into a pro-capitalism page. It's like the rich understand Elon Musk buying fucking Twitter, right? Like there is such this mindset.
It's even more than that. It's tantamount to, Jeff Bezos buying the Washington Post to turn around and say, I think the prices are a little too high.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to hear you saying that prices are too high on your paper that you bought and owned to get that interview because you're the one who raised the prices in the first place. And so, it seems to be really, really circular that there's so many people who are sort of jumping ship, and these are the same people that were, it's not even that they contributed to Caitlyn Jenner and people like Caitlyn Jenner and Dave Chappelle were some of the very first people, the most famous, because they're obviously very famous, and some of the first people to usher in the conversation about anti-transness. They were the ones who gave, Dave Chappelle was one of the top 3 stand-up comics who gave permission to the general public to make fun of trans people and using these anti-trans jokes, having all this anti-trans rhetoric, because the conversation back then is, should you say these offensive words about trans people? People were using words that we now today consider slurs. And it was at that cusp. 2016 is when when he started, is before
immediately
his
after that
special
tipping
came out,
point.
But right after that, there were right after the tipping point, there were a lot of people who were saying you shouldn't treat trans people this way, you shouldn't talk about them this way. And it was basically, a whole conversation about, it started as the conversation about, it was about bathrooms and transgender genitalia. And should you be able to use those things? And there was a debate. And that's what ushered in the debate of free speech and cancel culture. If you remember, people were talking about, I'm sure there were certainly other topics, but trans folks being made fun of by stand-up comics was a huge thing that people in the trans community and their supporters were protesting about. There were boycotts of Netflix. There were all these different things between 2016 and 2019. There was all these things, walkouts, and Caitlyn Jenner and Dave Chappelle those two were at the center of this. And at that time, they were saying, I can say whatever I want. It's free speech. How dare you try to cancel me? And I think there was a move to try to have, maybe not so much Caitlyn Jenner, because she's not as accountable to, public discourse as a comic would be, who needs to pay attention to.
She doesn't have a working career anymore in that way.
Yeah. Precisely. And so, but there were people who I think tried to call, all the stand-up comics, and it wasn't just Dave Chappelle, it was people like Ricky Gervais, who got up on the national stage and was making all these anti-trans jokes back in 2016 on whatever he hosted, the Emmys or whatever he hosted. And, people were trying to call these people in, can you please use better language when talking about this? And it was a slippery slope that we said could be a slippery slope. We were saying this, we were able to draw a correlation between and a connection between anti-trans rhetoric and the anti-trans actions, the violence, the murder rate against trans people, most notably trans women of color. That's what we were trying to do back then, is saying words do have an impact. They do. Otherwise, you wouldn't say them. And they rebuffed that. They were like, no. You're trying to cancel me.
You're just being
blah, blah,
controlling.
Blah.
Yeah. That's that politically correct censors and yeah.
And the entire discourse changed around politically correctness, being a social justice warrior, being woke. Like it kind of walked its way from moments like that.
Yeah, it's like that. It's Gamergate. It's all this stuff where suddenly the right was edgy and trying to be cool, and the left was censorious, and they were trying to ruin comedy. And yet, talking about how like this opens the window for everything. I was just looking at yesterday, 2 days ago, article about the America First Priority Institute, which are like people who are working with all of Trump's policies. They're a big
Oh,
think
wait,
tank.
hold up.
They've
Wait, I know exactly what you're going to say. Let's walk,
All
y'all,
right,
I want to
all right.
walk you through step by step by step.
Bring us there.
So we
Bring us there.
started in 2016 with all this
Mhm.
anti-trans rhetoric, and there wasn't a lot of proof because 10 years, that was 10 years ago, but we could see where things were going because of other things that were happening. Then we ended up getting all of this anti-trans legislation, and a lot of the anti-trans legislation, it increased. It was introduced a lot of times for the first time. I think there was like 18 bills and policies that were put forth in 2016. And over the past 10 years, that has multiplied like 10,
Like
20-fold. It's really
thousands.
difficult
Yeah.
to thousand. It's like by like over 1,000%. And that's actually like, you can calculate that.
Like
If
literal
you look
numbers.
at
Yeah.
yeah, literal numbers. If you look at the over 500 bills in 2024, now it's over 700 bills and policies, many of which have failed. That, to be honest and be fair, many of which has failed thanks to the very, very, very dedicated mission of the uh, civil rights advocates who've argued at the court in courthouses all across the country, from local, state, all the way up to the Supreme Court. Some of those bills and policies have failed. Many of them have passed, which is why there's over 27 states in our 50-state country that have bans on sports, trans bans, bathroom bans for trans people. And there's 6 states now, gender-affirming care bans that are 27 states. There's 6 states now that have revoked we talked a few weeks ago about Kansas. Now there's 6 states that have revoked the licenses and the birth certificates of trans people. And so like that has shown an increase too. And that's only in the past month in 2026 from end of February to April. And so we know that more are going to happen. So then we also see at the same time, all of these people making this right-wing shift. And I can't say that I thought that that's what Dave Chappelle and obviously Caitlyn Jenner was definitely doing that. But I just thought that these people were being oddly anti-trans. But then we start to see these people like really cozying up to not only the Trump administration, but like all, just like sort of these right-wing, not progressives, right-wing conservative
right-wing influencers,
people,
these conservative talk shows,
all of those folks were sort of like, moving and becoming more popular and really taking center stage. And so that was back in 2018, 2019. We were starting to see all that happen. Obviously, that was a huge help to Donald Trump being elected and reelected.
Failed like second string essayists from like local newspapers and science journalists who never got anywhere, like Jesse Singal and Katie Herzog, and all of them suddenly shifting all of their reporting to focus on like anti-trans topics. It's like they found the grift. They found the place where people would pay them for a hateful idea and then they stuck on it, And I think I see a little bit of that too with Dave Chappelle. I'm sure he had those ideas before, but also it worked. Like he got what is it, like 5 Netflix specials after all of that, And it's like you just see them finding this grift that absolutely works and sticking with it, and now starting to worry like, oh, is it going to damage my reputation a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, even beyond that, there's 100%, and I don't know that I don't know if it was like a plotted grift that got him Netflix specials, because he already signed that deal before he started making these jokes. But it was obviously the jokes were. The first Netflix special, we were like, can you please not be transphobic? The second Netflix special, he was more transphobic and doubled down. And we said, can you stop? The third, the fourth. And so like, it just kept increasing even within the Netflix specials. So it's not even like he had to like perform that in order to get some Netflix specials that he could be like, okay, I did that. Now I can talk about like nature. No, these were the anti-trans Netflix specials. Like most of the jokes that were not funny in his specials that he doubled down on. And the last one, calling himself a TERF and saying he agrees with J.K. Rowling. Most of the, a more than significant, like probably maybe a third or fourth, although I didn't watch the special, so I have to be fair, but like multiple jokes in a significant portion of these specials every time has been dedicated to being anti-trans. And, you know, after trying to draw empathy and say, look, these could have an impact on the trans community, after these folks doubling down, tripling down, saying, no, 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 you're trying to cancel me, forget all this, doing news interviews, keeping it going, keeping it alive, having people whip it up. Then obviously Trump getting into to power, watching all of these bills and policies increase. And then they start to, these bills and policies are not just like, you know, abstract. They're actually why Caitlyn Jenner's fucking ass doesn't have a fucking passport. They are why. And when we try to make that connection, it's really, really simple, because all those attorneys that I told you about, and I had the honor and pleasure, as we talked about before, of going and sitting in the Supreme Court more than once, watching these attorneys work very hard to defend and stop bathroom bans, sports bans, passport bans, which there's a Supreme Court case that we're waiting to hear the decision on that's already been argued for trans people having passports. This is exactly what Caitlyn Jenner is talking about. Gender affirming care bans. All of these things are before the Supreme Court, and every single time, as laid out in the documentary Heightened Scrutiny, people should go and watch. Every single time that these attorneys that are trying to fight for trans rights and LGBT rights at large are in the court, every single time that they're in there, they put forth the scientific information about gender affirming care that says that, you know, suicide rates amongst trans people drop when they're able to access gender affirming care, that, you know, that depression levels drop when trans people are able to access and participate in sports because it's community, it's socialization, all these different things, you know, so on. And so obviously people who want a passport, they want it to say what they want it to say, you know, and that the passport situation, if you're revoking somebody's gender marker, changing their information, then it presents a safety issue. It presents at least a discrepancy when you get up and somebody has to check your documents to see if things are the same, and they're not the same, then suddenly that's a problem. And so that's what, and they can present court case documents in court, evidence in court. That's what the attorneys who are trying to protect trans people and save their access to civil rights and save their access to equal rights and constitutional rights. That's what the attorneys are doing. But the attorneys on the other side, they're presenting evidence. And when they're asked for evidence, they're giving quotes by Caitlyn Jenner, quotes by Dave Chappelle, quotes by Joe Rogan and Matt Walsh, quotes from opinion articles by some of the people that you said. You know, that's what they're given. They're not given scientific information.
It's not science.
That's their evidence. They're not giving anything else. And so we can literally see legally and numerically how all this rhetoric goes into the court system. It's used as an excuse. It turns into law, and then it impacts the people. And now people like Caitlyn Jenner and Dave Chappelle, I have no why Dave Chappelle suddenly cares about anybody trans, are complaining about it's gone too far. And God damn it, if we have to use Caitlyn fucking Jenner and Dave Chappelle as a barometer to measure what is impacting me, when I told you 10 years ago that this was going to fuck my life up. So I don't want to hear what anybody has to say about in regards to fucking Dave Chappelle, Caitlyn Jenner. They can suck a dick as far as I'm concerned. And to finalize, as you were saying, clearly the position, the official position of the United States government in relation to trans people and trans issues is very particular at this point. I guess that's the
very particular. That's a nice way to put it. Well, I think about this. You know, those same people who you were talking about, the journalists, not so much the Dave Chappelles, but the Joe Rogans, the Matt Iglesias, the Matt Walsh, maybe not, but they all are like, oh no, it's the left. The left came too hard. There's this backlash because they've gone too far, done too much. The activists are the one who are making us do this. I mean, Ben Ryan went on a whole thread on Twitter about how he started reporting on pediatric gender transition medicine because the activists were so mean about it. You know, and so there's not only are they obscuring what is actually happening, they're turning what you said exactly around and saying, no. Those activists weren't right. They caused it to happen, not that they saw what was happening and predicted where it was going to go, but that it's in
I
fact
know they're
their
saying
fault.
that. Yeah, but there's a difference between the impact and intention. And there's also a difference between actually having scientific evidence. And regardless of whether it was our fault, your fault, my mom's fault, the Smurfs, whoever's fault it was, you are lying to people when you tell them that doctors are cutting off the genitalia of 1-year-olds in high school. 1-year-olds don't
Yes.
go to high school. Lunch ladies don't do surgeries. That's a lie. So I don't care if it's the Smurf fault or if it's Janet Jackson's fault or whose fault what made you say that. It is a lie and it's not real. But now the governors and the lawmakers in every single state are using your quote, which was a lie, to pass these laws that are harming people. And now you want to believe Caitlyn Jenner?
And
When we
now those
told
people
you
who are
don't do this
passing
to
the
our
laws,
passports?
all of those people, this is what I was saying earlier, is like they're now stepping out there and starting to say, oh yeah, we pursued things about children in sports because they were low-hanging fruit. The actual goal, they're starting to admit, is to stop all transition, to bring about what was it you were saying, the Lemkin Institute,
Well, I'll
right,
tell
said
you.
a
Yeah.
transgender genocide.
Well, before we give that proof, I remember as an individual saying online and in community with people at meetings, at advocacy groups and organizations, and with GLAAD, with ACLU, I was spending a lot of my time and energy talking about this over the past 10 years, telling people that the impact of this is going to be great, that when they're trying to stop us from accessing bathrooms, when they're trying to stop us from accessing sports teams, when they're trying to stop us from accessing having proper identification, that this is essentially erasing us from public existence. And people were saying, oh, no, you still exist. That's not true. And here we can see, as you just introduced, the Lemkin Institute, named after Raphael Lemkin, who coined the term genocide after examining what happened in the Holocaust, the extermination of at least 6 million Jewish people, and then millions of other people additionally. Not just Jewish people. A whole bunch of people,
queer people,
who
disabled
were
people.
disabled people, were exterminated. But before that, there were several policies that were put into place that limited access to identification, limited access to holding jobs and professional exclusions.
Controlled
Obviously,
movement.
controlled movement, putting people having to use a card or a pass, whatever. Also, book bannings and burnings, book bans, which turned into burnings, essentially. The reported, and I don't have that much information on this, experimentation at the scientific medical kind of experimentation. But, all those things aside, a concerted effort at every single stage to change how these groups of people were positioned in society. At the beginning of it, they were positioned in one spot, and by the end of it, they were positioned in another spot, which was a lower caste at the bottom. So that by the time we got rid of their licenses and their passports and their books, and we erased them from this, and we kept them out of the jobs, and we said you couldn't live in this area, and we said who you couldn't marry, and by the time we did all that, nobody was thinking about them when we marched them off and
Yeah, you have to do
exterminated
all
them.
those steps to get to the
You have to
point
do all
of
those
like
things
easy
first.
extermination.
And so Raphael Lemkin coined the term genocide so that we could watch out for those steps, not so that we could say, oh, look at all those people that just got killed. Must have been a genocide. No, he said that so we could look at the steps that are happening first and then say, let's prevent. It's the
happening
Lemkin
again.
Institute for Genocide Prevention. Not like, oh yeah, that must have been a genocide. No, we want to stop it. And so the Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention is saying that the steps that the U.S. government are taking today, there are now 3. They just gave the 3rd red flag that what America's doing is tantamount to and on its way to a genocide against trans people. And
those
today,
3 red flags,
I think,
so they are the licenses, what are the 3 red flags you were saying?
it's not just the licenses, it's the policy. I think it's the 3rd time that they've said all the various policies in the United States are 1 red flag, 2 red flags, 3 red flags. It's not just saying, oh, passports is a red flag, this is a red flag. It's not that. It's not one at a time because there's not one policy that's happening at once. You know what I mean? I wish it were, but like on Tuesday, when they get rid of licenses, they're also getting rid of gender affirming care. So like, it's the day that it's the red flag, not the one specific thing, because these things
Got
are
it. So they
happening
made three
at the same
announcements.
time. Yeah, they made
Got
three
it.
announcements of red flags. And so then you were saying, and this is confirmed. This is confirmed. How's it confirmed?
That
By
they're
their
coming
own
out
mouth.
now, and they are out there saying like this is the goal. We are going to stop any and all transitions. That which they, like you were saying before, the Overton window on what people can say publicly has totally shifted. They're saying at the America First Priorities Institute that they care about this no matter what age. That they picked low-hanging fruit because they can get wins, but ultimately their goal is to stop all people from transitioning and to destroy the trans community, which is a genocide. They're not going to say it's a genocide, right? The phrase they keep using is protect everyone from it. They what's that thing in domestic violence? Darvo, deny, was it deny something?
Deny,
Oh, deny
attack,
attack, reverse victim
reverse
offender.
victim and offender.
And that's
Yeah,
exactly
and
what
that
they're
is
doing.
the
And they are protecting us from it. They are also saying, you're the ones who caused this. You brought this on. It's that whole, it is such a classic set of like abuse tactics that are being weaponized in this genocide. And they're just saying it now out loud. And those people who we started off talking about at the beginning, who are just making jokes, who were just saying, oh, no, 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 we're just comedians. They're the ones who kind of set up the dominoes that lead us here. Get the
they
conversation here.
set up the domino effect that they set up the dominoes and then kicked off the first domino. And we could see where the dominoes were. They set them up going that way. And we could see, oh, the dominoes are going, look where the dominoes end. Look where they end. We were saying that
On
10
my
years
head.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now they're like, oh, I can't believe the dominoes ended. I can't believe the dominoes that I set up, that I clicked the first one. I can't believe that the dominoes ended here.
So
No,
terrible.
honey. It's
Mhm.
wild. And so it is, I think it's incredibly rich. Literally, they are obviously two rich
They are
people.
incredibly rich. Yeah, that's absolutely
But
true.
it's so rich that this is, that anyone is going to take anything they say seriously at all. And, I even find it puzzling that if the agenda of conservatives or this think tank or this organization, certainly the Heritage Foundation, because in their new version of Project 2025, which is now 26 and 28, says that we're coming after women's rights, we're coming after trans rights, all this. They say, they confirm that as well. But I find it so puzzling why a organization or a news organization or platform that's supportive of this effort would bring Caitlyn Jenner on to complain about her passport anyway. Like, all that's going to do is get people to be maybe,
Angry at
sort
her.
of
I mean, they
sympathize
might
with
just
her.
be maybe, but for their audience, it might just make them mad at her. It's sort of like, are they bringing her on to just make? I don't know. Like, what does Tommy
Why
Lahren
would they
think she
make, why
gets
would
out
that,
of this?
oh, be mad at, no, but I'm saying, yeah, they might be mad at Tommy Lahren. It's puzzling why Caitlyn Jenner would be up there saying, I've been harmed, because their whole thing is, we're not actually harming any trans people. Like, that's their thing. We're going to erase
Yeah.
everything, but we're protecting America, we're protecting the kids, and we're not harming trans people. So when you bring a famous trans person to say, I've been harmed, then it doesn't,
Mhm.
then it fucks
It
up
doesn't
your
make a lot of sense.
argument. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
wild.
And it
I
also
don't
makes
know.
you wonder, like, why isn't Caitlyn Jenner, if she's actually starting to feel like she's being harmed by this, like, why is this where she's going? Why not talk to someone who seems to actually, like, think she is being harmed and it has been caused by, but I guess she also went to Trump to say, like, can you fix my passport and not everyone else's? So I guess we see how community minded she really is.
Yeah, and at this point, I don't think that he has even answered. I mean, I don't know if he's answered or not, but this was just
He
yesterday,
can't
so I
even
doubt
remember
her.
what he says
Yeah,
day to day.
I doubt her passport has been changed, but I don't think it would be. Oh, you know what? It really would be wild to. I'm having this thought right on camera. It would be interesting. She can't have her passport changed. If she has her passport changed, this is the thing. I assume she still has money. Can use her money and connections, which is that's the thing that influences our president. She could use her money and connections to access him and request for her passport to be changed back. it'd be wild now to see, to see if it actually gets changed back. We'll never know. But I mean, I
Yeah.
guess if she hadn't said
If
any
she
of this,
starts
we would have never
traveling.
known in the first place. But if she starts
Mhm.
traveling, we'll know. So I guess we got to y'all pay attention to that bitch and see if she starts traveling. Because if she does, we'll know that it was changed potentially. And so if it was changed, that is an argument that, you know, it's necessary for trans people to have an ID that aligns with what they're presenting. And, you know, I want people to know that, like, until the 70s, we've had passports in this country for like 100 years, almost
Yeah.
100 years, right? And passports never
And
used
they
to
didn't have
have,
gender markers on
they
them.
did not
No.
have gender markers on them. That is a
It didn't
recent thing. But the point of identification should be to whoever you said you were, that's who you are. And this is, we can see you're the same person. That is what an ID is supposed to be. Not to prove what was going on between your legs, not to say what
Mhm.
scientific thing happened, you know, what
Not
chemistry
to
your
say,
mother had when she
yeah,
was
who
thinking
you
about
were
having
50
birth
years
to you.
ago. No.
Yeah, it's not that. It's who are you now? As the person that's standing before me, the right person. And I mean, that's the purpose of it. Obviously, they're
That's
deciding
not
to
how it's being
use
used, but yeah.
IDs to do something different. And so we'll obviously
Mhm.
have to see how this shakes out. But what is your final thought on this?
Well, my final thought on this is that we've been on a string of just shitty news in this country, absolutely endlessly shitty news, and I want to end
Yeah.
on one really good piece of news, which is to say, congratulations for being named the Grand Marshal of New York City's Pride Parade. We should have started there with some good news. This is so
Oh my
fucking
gosh, it's true.
cool.
Yeah,
It's gonna
it
be so
is
good.
really cool. Thank you. I've had a chance to participate in the parade and the march a handful of times over the years, and always have a great time. You know, I'll go to any Pride parade, honey. I love a parade. But there's something really special about Pride in New York, and particularly the march in New York, especially since 2020, when it went from technically being called a parade to a march, which reflects less corporate and more, of the people.
Community
And,
based, yeah.
yeah. And so that feels really good. So thank you. I'm
I think
excited.
naming you brings politics to the forefront as well. Like putting you there gives you a platform to say all the things you're saying here on an even
Oh,
bigger
honey,
scale, which is what we need. What we need right now. And that is the
I'm
only way,
ready.
like you are the anti Dave Chappelle and Caitlyn Jenner. You are the mouthpiece we need.
May
So
I
all
never have to
y'all,
utter their names in my mouth.
no,
Yeah.
never again. But if you are listening to this and you were thinking, should I go to Pride this year? Should I come to New York? Like, yes, this is your sign. Book your tickets, get on the way. We need to see all of you there supporting this vision of the community, not the one that is out for themselves, not the ones that's just trying to change their own passports, but the people who are trying to make sure we all have access to these things. So that is my final thought for the day. How about you, Pep?
Well, listen, I know that this sometimes it's probably even increasingly on this platform. It feels like it's a lot of doom and gloom, but it's not. Like, this is violence of the state, and make no mistake, these things do harm. They do have an impact, as we've talked about, a harmful impact.
Absolutely.
Caitlyn Jenner's even affected. But the good news is, because moments like Pride, moments before and after, frankly, every single day, the queer community provides joy for itself and for others, in addition to providing moments of change and great thought. The queer community is there on the forefront. It's queer folks. The queer folks that I've seen, when I've gone to different movements and different, like, anti-war protests or pro reproductive rights, rallies, and just all these different things, queer people are there front and center every single
Always.
time.
Always.
And so, that is heartening for me and inspiring for me. And if y'all are inspired, and there's a lot of things you can do, and maybe we'll post some not only activities but ways that people can get involved and help, because I do think that, like, let's make this summer one of that we really implement mutual, like, the thought of mutual aid and assisting each other and providing what we need and getting what we need from our neighbors, and sort of having that exchange. And it
Y'all need
begins
to plug
by
in.
that's right. It begins by clicking like and subscribe and share, talking about this episode, clip this episode, post it on social media. If there's something that you thought that we said that was, thoughtful or insightful or impactful or something, please share it. Talk about this podcast. We would love to get like maybe 10 more viewers or 10 more subscribers to our podcast this month. Just 10. It would be great
Come on, get ready.
if your friend were one of
Pride
them.
is coming. You need to be on it.
Anyway, that's the episode. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us today.
This podcast is part of Pride House Media, hosted by us, Peppermint and Hugh, produced and edited by Josh Rosenzweig, with original music composed by Nell Balaban.
If you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a rating and a review. It really helps others discover the show.
You can stay connected and join the conversation by following us at Peppermint 24/7 or write to us at questions@queer101podcast.com.
Thank you for listening. And remember, our history is your history. Stay proud, stay curious, and we'll see you next time on Queer 101.